Awaken World News with Patrick David Bonin. Good day, beautiful people. Thank you for joining us in this first ever broadcast of Awaken World News, where we expose the hidden agendas and the fall of the Babylon. On this broadcast, we'll be talking about some corruption around the healthcare industry here in British Columbia. We will be giving you a little inside scoop about some corruption that is inside the unions of our healthcare system. We'll also be talking about the new food pyramid that's built to make you healthy. We'll be also talking about the potentially politically engineered starvation in the near future. We'll be talking about the climate lockdown and the 15-minute cities. And we'll also be talking about the weather with Gandhi. First, I'm going to let you watch a little segment from a video here on Rumble by Kendemic. So thank you all very much, Kendemic, and for this video.
Historically, the nurses' union always used a process called a grievance to bring issues to the employer. Anyone that was terminated in 90 days, that would go to an arbitrator. So a third party would be involved to make sure that the member was represented. The 2,000 nurses and more since that have been terminated, it has been a year, and our union has not processed our grievances. That is the role of a union, to bring forward issues between the employer and the employee. What we discovered is that they deliberately did not represent us to give enough time to the provincial government to make Bill 36. Bill 36 is a law now that imposes the constrictions that were put on us that were only enforceable through the emergency measures of the public health order. So previously, all the mandates that Bonnie Henry imposed were only enforceable under the Emergency Act, and now those are all being challenged in court, which have been delayed again. But so what their response was, we're going to make it law now, what was only temporary before. So our union cooperated with that, delaying our representation and defending us so that the government had enough time to make it law.
Sounds like corruption.
We are investigating our union, and there are both legal and financial concerns that we have uncovered. Now, this is the kind of obstacles we are running into. We actually obtained financial statements from our union and had a fraud analyst look it over. There are significant concerns, but we need a forensic accountant to be able to review things. We have gone through 2 major companies now who the people that we contacted were like, yes, we want to help. We can see that there's issues. We get to the point where we're going to make legal structures in place, and then they all of a sudden back out because their higher ups tell them that they cannot. So we are running into issues where there is basically, as you said, corruption on every level that our society operates in, and this is now impacting the ability for any average person to have fair representation and to be able to actually find out what's going on behind union closed doors. Now, I'm in contact with other unions, members who have also been terminated, and they are experiencing the same thing. There are hundreds of thousands of people who are terminated in this province, and we are silenced. We are blocked from getting answers, and when we try to seek assistance from those that have the skills to be able to go through and find out what's going on, the higher ups are coming down and saying they're not allowed to help.
So Corrine was speaking on December 10th, 2022 here in Nelson, BC, and she has obviously put out some very important concerns out to the public. if all of these hundreds of thousands of people that have been terminated and 2,000 terminated health workers that are not being helped by their union, then to me it seems that they are being abandoned by their unions and by society. And in a time where the global news puts out this information here.
But no precaution is perfect, and no hospital is immune. Todd Ellis is a nurse at a Toronto trauma center and says his ER too is dangerously shorthanded.
We have limited resources to isolate people. And so you're seeing patients that are potentially COVID that are not being isolated because we just simply don't have the room.
In Quebec, COVID-related staff shortages have officials preparing for the worst as well.
In the next 2 weeks, most surgeries are going to be canceled. Most clinics are going to be canceled. We're talking about closing some emergency department, the ambulatory sites.
So in times where we're in dangerous shortage of health workers, because of COVID, they're not really telling them what the truth is really going on. And now that all this truth has come out, and I won't speak too much about it because of worries of being blocked on here, but we are eventually going to be doing extended versions of the news onto Rumble where we can speak on any topic. But in this situation, we can see that they are showing us that they're putting people's lives at risk, and these 2,000 health workers here in British Columbia are being fought by their own unions and not supported by their own unions. So this corruption that is deep involved in our communities, these are the things that we have to look at to wonder if we really have been living in a democracy. You can make people think they are living in a democracy if you show them, here's the carrot, follow the stick, because we're supposed to be the ones that lead our governments. The government are supposed to protect us. However, all they do is teach the people which direction to go, so that the people think that they are controlling the government. Well, that's why here at Wake Up World News we will speak all of these truths, because we also believe that an ignorant and passive people is the reason why these demons can take over our world. And when I think of our healthcare and our government that is supposed to be healing us and protecting us, doing all of these crazy things and corrupting these truths, I see maybe it is time to let them go and realizes we need to start a parallel society where we appreciate all the people of our community, whether we decided to take an experiment or not. And that this story leads into our next story, which is the new food pyramid. And the information in this is shocking, because these, again, are supposed to be people that are leading us towards a healthy future, when we've all know and the truth that has come out around sugars and processed foods. So here, let's have a little look at this new food pyramid that's here to help you be healthy.
Primetime decided to dig into this little study today, and it was done by researchers at Tufts University, a safety school, and paid for by Fauci's cabal over at the NIH, the so-called National Institute of Health, NIH. It claims that foods we thought were healthy, like meat and eggs, are terrible for us, and recommends replacing them with junk food, manufactured by America's largest food conglomerates. See where this is going? According to these new recommendations, we should moderate our consumption of eggs, cheese, ground beef, and rice, and replace them with foods that are more profitable for the food industry, like frosted mini wheats, Cocoa Puffs, chocolate-covered almonds, and peppermint lattes. What about clean, healthy proteins like chicken, beef, and shrimp? Well, they want us to cut back on that. Cocoa Puffs are just as healthier than lean protein. Now, the government won't tell you this, but most of these junky foods they're pushing also just happen to qualify for food stamps. And you can't buy healthy food with food stamps, but you can buy as many chocolate-covered almonds as you want. And so the guys over at General Mills and Kellogg's hear this, and they know their money for studies at Tufts and grants to Dr. Fauci have paid off. So did they put these scientists up to it? And what about the NIH? Did they sign off on this? Did Fauci? They won't comment. Tufts won't comment. NIH won't comment. Rich companies are paying for fake science so they can get richer and you can get fatter, and the government is in on it. And it's working nearly everywhere. Every school, hospital, prison cafeteria, they all get the same stuff and the same guidance. And it's not going to end here. Soon, we're all going to be eating frosted mini wheats for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What could go wrong? Nina Techholz is a science journalist and author of The Big Fat Surprise. Are you shocked by this?
Yes. I mean, I think anybody can recognize that frosted mini wheats and chocolate-covered almonds are not healthy. And the fact that this new food pyramid, as you call it, there were more than 70 cereals named by brand from Kellogg's, General Mills, Post. I mean, really tells you that that is, a sign of an industry-fueled study. But, it's not just that particular study. On a study that I co-authored where we looked at the conflicts of interest on the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, the experts that review the science for our nation's top nutrition policy, we found that 95% of the committee had a tie with the food or pharmaceutical industry.
No, pharmaceutical and food industry buying the scientists? That's not something that could really happen, could it? No, look at that lovely table of food right there. If you eat that, you'll stay healthy, won't you? Oh, why not? Oh, I wonder why the pharmaceutical industries would be interested in pushing this food pyramid. Well, some may say there could be a conspiracy to keep people unhealthy. This leads to the next issue here, which is the potential politically engineered starvation that may be here to come. If you look back to the Soviet Union, most of the deaths that happened during the communist movement in the Soviet Union was politically engineered starvation. How could we still have this happening to this day? Well, to be honest, things do not change. Just our perception on things do. And that's why we need to stop perceiving what they show us as the truth. Here is a map you can go look up yourself at zeemaps.com. And here we're going to look at all the burnt down grocery stores, food pantries, farm and animals, grain silos, plants, even hacked facilities and fuel engine, water, and fertilizer plants. Let's take a look here. Interesting. When you zoom in to the United States, we see all of these things going on. These are all food plants. Let's just look at this list here. And you see it's arson. There's permanently closed stuff in there. There's arson. Look at that. All of those arsons. 709 listings in here. And I'll zoom back out so we can look at where they all are. You can see the huge effect it's going to have here in North America on us. We get a lot of our food from the United States. And if you see all this going on, all these, look at this big section right here. That section right there is a big clump of hacked locations. So let's click one of those there. This is a grain. They were hacked. 60 locations were hacked. That this can cripple the grain and pork and chicken supply chains. As we can see, there's some serious issues here going on with our food networks. There's not a heck of a lot going on up here in Canada. However, we have to remember is much of where we get a lot of our food and trade comes from down here. So this will absolutely affect us and a lot of the world. We have people smuggling eggs across the borders because of egg prices going up. And again, all these egg production facilities getting shut down, and some of them permanently, as you can see here. I hope all of you by now have started to load up on food and started to realize how important our gardens are and how important it is for us to find people in our own communities to connect with on our food situation. If they're going to be forcing us into these situations, then we are going to have to become independent of them, but dependent on our neighbors and our communities, which means knows who is who in your new community when it comes to food and health. Because as you can see, Big Daddy G is not the person we should be looking for to protect us. In our next story, we're going to be talking about the climate lockdowns. People have been talking about this for years, just as the world was locked down around the world because of this virus. We can see the potential danger of being locked down again by our governments. So when changing situations and policies in the world, they have to make it very uncomfortable first before people decide to jump in some lukewarm water that is under the fire that is slowly being boiled. When you let society crumble, transportation crumble like it does around our area, when you make housing crumble, as it happens big time in Canada and in the United States, then the people that save us can do almost anything to save us, even if that means putting us in a cage. Here's a video that was released by Edmonton. And Edmonton is in Alberta here in Canada, and we have this new Danielle Smith that's supposed to be standing up against the World Economic Forum. However, I'm not sure how much power she has over communities like Edmonton. However, I would hope that she would be talking about some of these things, considering these are, again, the same kind of forces as the World Economic Forum. So here, let's just see what Edmonton has to say about these 15-minute cities.
If you're meeting up with friends at a park, you want to be able to meet them at the one that's a few blocks away, instead of crossing the entire city. If you're going to get groceries, you want to go to the local market instead of driving to the opposite end of town. And if you're sending your kid to school, maybe you'd rather send them to the one that's a short walk, bike, roll, or bus ride away. A lot of us can probably already do one of these things. But what if you lived somewhere where you could do all of them? That is what it means to live in a 15-minute community. Living in a 15-minute community is about being able to meet most of your daily needs within a 15-minute walk, roll, bike, or transit trip from your home. It requires you to look to your district for all of these things rather than all over the city. But wait, what's a district? Most of the time, we either think about where we live in terms of our neighborhood or the whole city. In reality, we live on a scale somewhere in between. You live in one neighborhood, your favorite coffee shop is in another, and maybe you walk your dog through a few more. That group of neighborhoods where you spend a lot of your time, that is a district. District planning is about looking at those districts and working to make them better, bringing Edmonton closer to the city plan's vision. It's about asking questions like, do we have active and attractive main streets or nodes and corridors? Can people get around safely biking or by transit? Are there opportunities for different types of housing? Can people access the services and amenities they need? And then, planning to make all those things happen. This will take time. After all, the city plan's vision happens at 2 million people. It hopes to have 50% of all new housing built in our developed neighborhoods, with 50% of all trips made by walking, rolling, or transit. These purposeful steps will help you get closer to the things you need no matter where you live. All 400 of our neighborhoods can't have one of everything. But if we plan a city where every district has almost everything a person needs, we could spend less time commuting, and more time in communities. District planning is one big piece of building a livable city. To learn more, visit edmonton.ca/district planning.
Wow, that sounds really lovely, doesn't it? You know, this is how we get put into this nice warm water. And then they slowly turn that heat up until we are boiling. It does seem like a really nice plan to have every city have things really close together so that we can get all these things close. So go for it. Please build your 15-minute cities. However, if your 15-minute cities are going to come with regulations that stop my ability to move freely, then this is drawing a line. That is a line that we will not allow you to cross. And that's why here at Awaken World News, we will always point out the weaponized compassion that our government does to slowly build a fence around us. We will be doing some more reporting on the 15-minute city and more of the inside scoop as we become more knowledgeable about this situation. However, on change.org, there is a petition that you can sign that stops the 15-minute city project in Edmonton. On their petition, they wrote some very important things that I'd like to share with you. If you go to the City of Edmonton website, it explains all the pros of 15-minute cities, but none of the cons. They have purposely omitted the cons because everyone would revolt otherwise, and it would never go through. The city has already planned out 15 zones throughout Edmonton. So I'm here to tell you about the cons. One of which is that you will not be allowed to leave your zone without a permit, which you will have to apply for. You will only be allowed a certain number of permits per year, and a permit is used for each zone you travel through. So for example, if you want to drive from the north side of Edmonton to Willwoods, it may take 4 permits for a one-way trip. So what they're saying here is that you're going to have a certain amount of permits, likely going through your digital ID on your cell phone, that will tell you how much you're able to move around. As sovereign beings, we should never have to apply for permits to do the things that were inherited rights as human beings. And the freedom to move is one of those inherited rights that God has given us, governance of where we go. It's bad enough. Gandhi, Ruby, and myself from Awaken World News suggest to all of you to take yourself out of that water that is slowly bubbling around you. All the little things that help. The big things like producing food for yourself and your communities, producing medicines and health for yourself and your communities. Going back on some of the technologies that they are going to be able to use to lock us up. And that's why myself, I've switched to a flip phone, and I will not carry around the little computer that they are eventually going to try to use to enslave us. So in the last bit of this, we are going to go over to Gandhi for the weather. Hello, Gandhi. What do you got today for us?
Thank you, Patrick. The weather in Brazil is going to start to be a lot more natural considering what I've just found here on Rumble. Check out these Brazilians taking back their weather.
Well, Gandhi, you know sometimes we're going to have to be the devil's advocate to try to explain the other side of things. Is there any way that could be a substation and not a HARP weather control station? And here, let's take some looks at some of these power stations they've got on here. As you can see, these substations
all have these giant generators and all these wires that are going about them. And as you can see in this video, none of these have wires going between them, and they're all right close to each other, just like pictures of HAARP. What do you guys think out there? Do you think that this is a HAARP station in Brazil being destroyed by the people? We all hope so. You know, a lot of people might say is, well, can't we use this kind of technology to help produce more rain and do benevolent things to the world? And what I would say about that is, how do we know anything about climate change unless we're taking some of these variables out of the equation? As you can see, here's a picture over top of the HAARP station, and look at these new straight liney clouds that they have. For years and years, everyone that talked about weather manipulation was thought of as tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists. Here in Weimar, where I live, which is a very small mountain town that has a very small sky, I've seen 8 chemtrail lines go across the sky all at the same time, multiple times that I've had this happen in the past. Here's a video of that. This is a video off my deck here in Weimar, BC. And many people say, oh, those could just be planes that go over. They're coming just from one airport going to another. Well, what I would say to that is, why is there seem to be an airport there, and in the sky? That makes no sense. If it was a common path, then they would all just kind of follow behind each other, would they not? Another thing is if this was a common place for airplanes to go over, then I would see this occurrence happen way more often. And I don't see it as often as I used to see it. And so these are just things that Awaken World News likes to talk about. If you would all think that this is just a conspiracy and it's not true, please tell us down below what evidence you have for that. Because we just want to point out to the world what this government is doing to us. They've been doing this here and for years and years, and they've denied it. So this is what the government is doing to you without telling you about that. And we need to change this paternalistic government into a government of transparency. If you have any... Thank you all for joining us on this very first broadcast of Awaken World News. If you have any topics you'd like us to investigate or speak upon, please leave them down below in the comments section or email into our email, which I'll also leave down below. Please, love each other out there, and don't just pray to catch the bus. Run also.